is great in theory so far with everyone that we've heard from so far today, but here's Mr. Reality. Eric House. He's with
Give
SMI.
us a dash of cold water.
No. There are some cool things that you were sharing that you'll be sharing today about how you took the vision of, the data coming from Terry's group and the sustainability efforts from Nicole and Dennis focusing it, and the design principles from Ryan. So there are some really nice ways that you've dovetailed that into how can that be accomplished in the modular housing space. So we're going to turn the floor over to you. If anybody has any other comments or questions, we'll have another Q&A toward the end. So go ahead and put any other comments that you have here. I'll be watching for those. But we're going to have Eric give you guys a little bit of an overview on the constructability side. So say bye to everyone else for a minute. And we'll see you guys again shortly. And Eric.
Okay, great. Yeah, first, again, has been a pleasure, continues to be a pleasure for Structural Modular Innovations to participate in this dynamic and exciting project, whereby we really are taking on the challenge of innovation and bringing it to reality. So there really were three items that I wanted to focus on today. There are many lessons learned already through this project and this process. So the first challenge was, to focus it down onto some key items that could be communicated in this session. And those were shear walls, which does dovetail into window openings as well, how we optimize windows types and color. And then third item that I'm hoping to explain some of the key challenges from a constructability standpoint is the air distribution, HVAC system, and the framing systems of the home, how those were integrated in the modular delivery environment to optimize comfort and energy efficiency. So first, shear walls. What's shown on these images are the schematic design that was the result of the collaborative process that the others have already described, where we came up with kind of our first pass at how we would deliver on these great design principles and ideas. And the challenge that was the first item we had to work through with our engineering team at the factory is that this is a stacked townhome on an urban infill lot. So the lot is 22 feet wide, 100 feet deep. So by definition, the home is fairly narrow and fairly deep front to back, and also tall in order to provide for the two units in the one residence. The end result of that is that the building, from a standpoint of shear requirements, is acting as a big sail, with the long sides of the building being exposed to more substantial wind loads. A typical kind of prescriptive engineering or constructability solution, if we were just going to standard protocol from prescriptive code compliant strategies, would be to configure the front and the back of the home as shear walls, which means they would be largely opaque surfaces with structural sheathing. Clearly, that would conflict with health and wellness objectives and the key design principles. So what we needed to work through was, instead of a prescriptive approach, a creative and innovative engineered solution. And the key component of that engineering strategy is something that is referred to as a portal frame. So the next slide shows some drawings prepared by the production and engineering staff at the factory. And to explain the concept, these drawings are focused just on the second floor front porch of the home. So the right side of the screen is a plan view of that front porch. And then what's shown on the left side of the screen is a front elevation of a portion of the front wall of that porch. Again, on the plan view, the wall highlighted blue was built as a portal frame, and that's comprised of the two short side walls functioning together with the header across the top of that frame as a complete structural element that is providing shear resistance to, again, those lateral forces and wind loads. And the key to the portal frame is that it does provide for a large opening in the middle of that portal frame. So the engineered solution combines the 2x6 wall framing with the header above, with structural sheathing and a very specific nail pattern for fasteners to accomplish those shear requirements. And this got into very careful coordination with Dahlin and Ryan and the full team at Dahlin to understand the exact dimension of the two wall segments on either side of the portal frame, the size of the header. So we ended up being able to make just some minor adjustments to the schematic design to be true to the design intent while meeting the structural requirements. So the next slide shows, again, on the left side, the schematic design of the front of the home before going through the engineering process of working through the shear wall requirements. The right side shows the final design. And in some respects, you can see differences, but I also would hope that you would agree that the fundamental design intent was still accomplished and not compromised by implementation of these engineered solutions. Another key aspect of that is in the factory setting, we are able to define these engineered solutions up front, kind of build the home on paper, so to speak, and then have processes and procedures in place at the factory with trained staff that are overseen by quality control assurance personnel and third-party inspections to repeatedly and with great confidence implement these strategies so that you really truly can optimize these performances and know that you're accomplishing the structural requirements. So the second piece or lesson learned or challenge that we really had to focus on is, again, intimately connected to the shear walls, and that is the window design. So the home initially, actually, if you could go back one slide for me, Betsy. Yeah. So again, you see on the left-hand side the schematic design, and the right-hand side you see the final design. We had to optimize the number of windows to where possible. Instead of having 9 smaller windows, condense some of those into larger fixed windows to still provide for the same daylight, but again, accomplish cost-effective delivery of the home through the factory with our window supplier. Another key item that we worked through with the Dahlin team was that the black windows were an upgrade cost compared to white windows. So whereas the initial design had black windows for the entire home, we came up with a very effective design solution that is still aesthetically pleasing, that combined some white windows on the sides of the home, complemented by the light blue siding, with the black windows strategically located on the front and rear of the home and complementing the dark siding colors at those locations as well. So just another collaborative effort with key input from all folks on the design team to come up with a solution that reflected the design intent without having to compromise while being cost effective. So then really the third and final item that I wanted to call some attention to was how we worked together to collaborate on the HVAC system, together with open web floor trusses for the floor framing. And specifically the RIA system. If you could advance one slide, Betsy.
If you can go back just a second in what you were saying, at least for me, you jumped out, so I missed the beginning of that transition to RIA, and I will go back that slide for you.
Okay, sure. Yeah. The third and final kind of challenge I wanted to call attention to is in order to accomplish the energy performance objectives and sustainability objectives, we really had to focus in on the HVAC systems for the home. And we needed to ensure that those were all located within conditioned space. So therefore, by definition, they have to be integrated into the structural components of the house. So the solution that we were able to implement uses the RIA air distribution system, which is comprised of 3 and 4 inch diameter flexible ducts and a family of fittings that can snap together to make airtight connections with those flexible ducts. And because of the small size, the air distribution system is able to be integrated into structural elements without having to make significant changes to the arrangement of the spaces in the home. The other kind of key aspect of the RIA is that it is configured to have home run distribution of the ductwork. So from the main supply plenum at the air handler, all the ducts come up to separate takeoffs from that location to each register and diffuser spread throughout the home. And because of the airtight connection of the fittings and the fact that they can snap together, we were able to implement this approach in the modular environment, whereby the ductwork is installed in the first floor, second floor, third floor boxes in the factory. And then on site, we're able to snap them together from floor to floor. So the images are just showing in the factory how the ductwork is being incorporated and installed within the openings of the open web floor truss systems. And then if you could advance to the next slide as well, a lot of the ductwork was able to be routed above some of the ceilings, where there is again an interstitial space between the ceiling of the lower box and the floor of the box above it. So we were able to integrate all of these components inside the home within conditioned space, which delivers improved energy efficiency and optimized comfort. The next few slides are just detailing how that was configured in the various spaces. Again, this is the first floor of the home. So in the ADU, which is on the right side of the screen, there is a horizontal flow air handler to be installed in the conditioned crawl space. And then all the duct distribution is installed in the floor framing through the open web floor trusses. For the main townhome dwelling unit, the air handler is on the first floor in a mechanical closet, with the ductwork routed through the ceiling, where it then would connect into the second floor. So the most significant impact on the spatial arrangement from this HVAC approach was on this second floor. The walls along the stair and at the one bathroom were doubled up to be a double 2x4 wall to allow for RIA ducts through wall chases. And then again, you see on that drawing, the ductwork to the second floor was routed above the ceiling to ceiling diffusers throughout that space. And then again, many of those ducts went through the second floor wall to the third floor on the next drawing into the open web floor trusses again, where they're routed through the floor system to floor registers and high wall diffusers. Again, keeping all of that HVAC system and air distribution within the conditioned space of the home. Again, all of this was analyzed and engineered and solved all those problems, on paper before the home went into construction, and then we're able to seamlessly implement that strategy on the production line in the factory.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to bring everybody back in. I don't know why it's making me big. We don't want that. At least I don't want that. Oh, one more Nicole's down here. So we do have a couple questions for you. One was, did the size of the front bay porch change due to the structural requirements?
No, the size of the front porch did not change. On the second floor porch, there was one wall segment on the right side of the front of the home where the initial design did provide for not a window, but an additional opening to provide visibility to the street. We did need to turn that section of wall into a shear wall that was fully opaque. But again, it was enough of a minor nuance that the overall design intent was really still met and was not compromised by that adjustment. And again, the walls on that second floor porch, the two side walls of that portal frame ended up being 18 inches wide instead of the initial intent was they would be 12-foot wide segments. So it was more a matter of slight massaging of the initial design rather than having to make a substantial change.
Yeah, and that was part of our process too of going back and forth as Eric showed the schematics side by side, that we could do it live in 3D. So we're really not going back and forth, sending drawings live, see how this affected the design principles, and really kept it where we wanted it to be, but still keep the structural integrity of it.
So we're going to go until quarter after. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to add them to the chat now. I did want to ask something because I've been looking at attainability for a while of you guys. So you mentioned that this design change with the windows was done so that it would be much more cost effective. Can you tell us roughly how much cost that took out, if it's a percentage of how much the cost went down by doing that? Because I thought it was a really innovative way to, and I think you were accurate in saying that making those changes, you still get the aesthetics of the intent of the design. But I don't think people think of things, those kind of trade-offs in the way that you did. So is there a dollar figure or a percentage that you could put to that in terms of impact?
Yeah, the rough order of magnitude on the cost savings was approximately $10,000 for the window package. So there was a significant and key decision that needed to be made. Well, again, we were elated that we were able to, again, work collaboratively to come up with a design. We actually, Ryan and I felt like, wow, this is actually looks better once we're done. So it was important to challenge ourselves because of the cost implications. But it was something where we were high-fiving each other, as a team. It was like, wow, this kind of proves that we can work through the process and come up with a solution that accomplishes attainability while enhancing design intent and principles.
Yeah, Eric, and as Terry mentioned too, with the data showing what the buyers want in home, it's that not just going to cut costs as a whole, it is still keeping in mind of what they're willing to pay for if you put that in their space, the amount of natural light for the wellness aspect. So it was a holistic approach versus just saying we need to cut cost in this home.
So Dennis, I understand you're the money man when it comes to this in terms of how much the overall cost is. If someone were looking at this in Pittsburgh, what do the economics look like for the end user, both in terms of, I'm not sure if you looked at what you think the ADU would rent for, but I'm looking for a house now. Not that I want to buy this one, but it's a little small for me. But I'm looking for a house and saying, what I really want, I have to get something where I can have somebody take up part of my space. I need a renter in part of my space. So I think this is really interesting and could make a huge difference in terms of attainability for people. So what's the bottom line on the dollars and cents part of it?
Yeah, happy to answer that. And I also think we can tie in a question that I saw floating through the chat from Lourdes Salinas as well. So one, the cost savings that we're putting into this project, the intent is to translate that into the consumer. Two, the focal point of this project has kind of been looking again within that missing middle housing typology. Within Pittsburgh itself, the household of 4, 80% AMI would be around $75,000 in household income. So our goal has been on the outset to look at how do we stay from 80% to 140% AMI and provide a housing solution in these markets or in these specific neighborhoods where that would typically not be achievable. So if you think it's roughly in rough numbers, 75,000 to 135,000 is kind of the income range for a household of 4 that we're targeting to be able to afford this initial, to make this initial home attainable.
There's a question on the, oh, I'm sorry. Nope. Okay. There's a question on the performance side, or on the constructability side, from Jake asking if conversations were had with MEP trades about cost savings of install with open web trusses versus I-joists.
I think we also figured out who was making popcorn earlier, and unfortunately that was my microphone. So I will try to be very succinct in my answer. Yes, we have worked closely with the folks in the factory, and they were happy to report that compared to installations that they have done in the past, where Structural Modular Innovations has built multiple high performance homes that have complied with the most stringent criteria available, including passive home, living buildings, etc. And the RIA system caused far, far fewer headaches for them than other things that they have implemented or tried to do in the past. Again, because the components all snap together, they fit within framing elements. So it was welcomed with open arms by the folks in the factory. And we are collaborating and coordinating with the HVAC subcontractor for the on-site installation, which that has not yet been completed. But we've done all the upfront planning and actually got input from the site installer as well, just to kind of clarify the scope of work of what would be performed in the factory and what would be completed in the field. And we did all collectively agree that fundamental to that strategy should be complete as much of the work as we can in the factory to simplify the process of the final fit out on site. And the on-site HVAC sub was on board with that, as well as the folks at the factory.
Well, and you're going to be taking some folks into the factory to look around. I'm going to let Dennis talk about that, so you can save your mic and feel free to pop in if you want to, Eric. But in a couple of weeks, coming up pretty soon in Pittsburgh, we've got a group touring in the factory to see what SMI is up to and this project in particular. Dennis, can you speak to that for a minute?
I certainly can. And just before I jump into that, I wanted to add something to Eric's point. I've also had the opportunity to participate in a number of what I'll call almost like trade council working sessions that Eric's organized that have allowed us to work with trades that may not be 100% familiar with the process that we're embarking on, and help them provide the input not only for what, again, obviously what we can optimize within the factory setting, but how they can each work together. To then connect the dots and what training might be needed at the factory to kind of streamline some of these solutions as we go forward. So to Ryan's excellent point that the R becomes the D down the road, and it becomes something that's a repeatable process. A big part of this exercise for us has always been around empowerment, right? And I've used that word when we launched the project, but it's about empowering consumers to get into the home that they deserve, like you mentioned, Betsy, in markets that they might not otherwise be able to attain them. But it's also about making a lot of the things that we're talking about approachable to the industry. And I think Nicole hit on this perfectly when she was going through her presentation. This regulatory drive that's taking place around embodied carbon doesn't have to be intimidating. The idea of working with local trades or an established trade base to transition from an on-site to a an element of it being built offsite to all of it being built offsite. It doesn't have to be intimidating. And then working with the team at Dahlin to help understand how we translate that to the industry, and then also working with professional builder to get that message out. I think, again, so that empowerment piece and seeing it in action with Eric and the team at SMI has just it's been really exciting to watch that at that level, because I think sometimes that's where we find we can have the most sticking point and some of the most friction. So on that side, and then that we're going to bring that to life even more so through the factory tour that we were running on October 6th, or that we're participating in, I should say, is the Housing Innovation Alliance. But the local Realtors Association here in Pittsburgh, RAMP, and the local Green Building Alliance are going to be running an event at SMI to introduce both of their organizations to some of the benefits around these types of homes, and the homes that are built within a factory, I'll call like a systems built housing environment. Talk about some of the sustainability benefits, and in a marketplace where inventory is constrained, I think we have there's a great story here where you can go from permit to keys in less than 90 days on vacant sites that are located all over the city. So I think that we'll have an opportunity there to not only understand what are some of the differences between the terms that we hear in the home building industry between modular construction and manufactured housing. What are the different types of modern methods of construction or factory built housing systems, but then also get to see it in action and understand the implications it has as it ties back to many of our core themes for this particular concept home around sustainability and overall comfort for the consumer.
Cool. So if you're not in Pittsburgh, if you are in Pittsburgh, Natalie will put the link to the event page in the chat so you can see that. She's been diligently sharing a ton of stuff, links to articles and press releases and, more in-depth things, content related to the data that came out from the third wave of the study. So feel free to get all of that good stuff in the chat here. If you end up having more questions when we're offline, put those here. We'll periodically look and see what additional information we can give you. But if you're not in Pittsburgh and you're not aware of this event, come back and look at the chat. How can you get involved in the next wave of the concept homes? And where should we be looking for more information moving forward? Terry.
Sure. Well, I think that's a great question. I think one of the places is we have a concept home website, which has all of our partner information. It has the floor plans, fact sheets on each of the two homes, as well as links to a lot of the published content that was authored by Nancy Keenan of Dahlin as a result of wave 3 of the study. And very simply, it's americaathomesteady.com. So there's a lot of insights and information there. But I think Dennis also alluded to the partnership with Pro Builder Magazine and the opportunity to be able to share some of that content, not only in their publication and on their digital assets, but also at the International Builders Show next year in Vegas. So I think the short-term answer is follow us on LinkedIn, check out the Concept Home page. And then I know I can speak honestly about any one of the 6 people gathered on the screen here today. We went into this entire endeavor during the darkest early days of COVID with one goal in mind: to try to learn what this meant to how people thought about their homes and communities, what this seismic event that we've all lived through, but really to be open source and to be honestly and authentically and organically sharing the insights we learned so that we can all try to help our noble industry face the challenges that it faces and to continue to try to make the world a better place for people. So we're very open-hearted and open-minded and open-armed, and we'll be willing to share and help everyone else, apply this as best they can in their own world as well. So I hope that's a decent answer to your question, Betsy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put you on the spot, Ryan, as well. What would you want somebody's main takeaway, since you guys are the intel inside the design? Both the design of the building and the interior design of the buildings for these two homes. What would you want them to take away from a design perspective?
Yeah, I think it's really that understanding, and I'll say it again, who's going to live there and how will they live. And it's not what did we do last time? What's our competition doing to us? But it's really understanding that if you can design specifically, and we have the data that shows what these people want in a home, and it's not just home, it's community. These are specific homes on an infill lot, but as we mentioned a little bit about how that lives in community, safety aspects, eyes on the street type thing. It's really taken that extra step to just understand that, and people are willing to choose things in home and in community if it's designed right for them.
Cool. Well, thank you all. And before we go, I do want to take the last 2 minutes or minute, if I can, to share just a couple of updates on things that we've got coming up soon on the Alliance front. So if you're not in Pittsburgh, but maybe you're going to be in at the EBA conference that's coming up in Salt Lake City, October 12th and 13th. We are doing a road trip there where we're going to be visiting Woodside Homes, one of their communities, as well as their inspiration gallery. We're going to visit with Ivory Homes and Ivory Innovations, talk about their whole process of how they get from fostering innovation at the university to incorporating it into their for sale and for rent products out in the field. We're also going to be visiting a very progressive community and very large community with its own zip codes called Daybreak from Larry H. Miller that is doing quite a bit in terms of water conservation that they're going to share with us. And we're going to see Bamcor as a bamboo structural material. Hopefully we're going to see it installed in the field. But there's great companies that we're visiting with, and there's also great companies that are joining us on those visits. So if it's of interest to you, please take a look at this QR code, scan the QR code. It'll take you directly to our event page for more information. And then we're already working on our big event for the year, and the second round of our innovation competition called Pitch Fest, which will be hosted at the Housing Innovation Summit in Denver, the 23rd through 25th of April of next year. And the summit itself is a 2-day program with the Pitch Fest pitches incorporated into those 2 days, as well as optional tours on day 3. And we're going to be launching the application for Pitch Fest the 1st of October. So if you have an idea for innovation in any of our 5 big mission areas, hopefully focused on production housing. So, larger scale production home building across the country. You can get more information on the Pitch Fest website. So both of these QR codes are also active. And you can visit either of those websites for more information, or feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Always happy to give you more details. But thanks to everybody for sharing more information about this project today, and look forward to the next one that we have when we talk about the 412. So for everyone who joined us today, thanks so much and have a great rest of your day. And we'll hopefully see you online again soon. Bye.
Thanks so much, Betsy.
Everybody.
Take care.